Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. Now this is a really exciting week for me and the channel because we're just about to cross the 1,000 subscriber milestone, which has been a huge goal of mine since I started out just 4 months ago. So I'm super pumped about that. I wanted to thank each and every one of you for watching these videos and subscribing to the channel. And I'm really excited to move into this next chapter of my YouTube career. Now, in terms of today's video, we're going to be talking about a company that just reported some fantastic earnings. This is a stock that I've never really looked at before, and it's actually in the lumber industry. So the company name is Canfor, and I wanted to take you guys through their business model because I believe there's a couple of really big catalysts for this industry moving forward. Now, before we get into it, please take a second to smash the like button. It really does help this channel out, and it helps get this content to other people like yourself who may find value. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please do so. Who knows, you might even be my 1,000th subscriber, which would be massive. And leave a comment in the section below on what you think of this analysis, the Canfor company itself, and the lumber industry overall moving forward here. Now, without further ado, let's roll the intro clip and get into today's video. Okay guys, so that's right. Today we're going to be talking about Canfor Corporation, which is in the lumber industry. They also have some pulp operations, so definitely outside of the norm for this channel, but this is an industry that I'm extremely bullish on. I'm going to talk about my bullish thesis for the lumber industry overall. Then we're going to talk about Canfor's business operations specific to their company and my outlook or my price prediction for this stock moving forward. Now, this is definitely not a company that's well followed. It's almost non-existent on the forum boards. Not a lot of people know about this company, think about this company, or talk about this industry. So I definitely don't expect this to be my most popular video on the channel, but I do see tremendous upside for this industry and this name specifically. This is a company that I'm looking at actively buying in the next couple days here. So I wanted to give all of my true viewers a heads up because I'm not seeing anyone else talk about this company, and I think it really is a hidden gem here. So this is the chart on Canfor over the last 6 months. You can see it's had a tremendous run up from just under $9 to just north of 33. Now, as of close on May 4th, so Tuesday night's close, they traded up about 4% on that session, which equated to about $1.22 Canadian, and they closed out just under $33. So this company has definitely seen a lot of share price appreciation over the last few months. Obviously, investors are starting to catch on to this trend. However, I think this is just the beginning, and I think there's still a lot of upside for this company moving forward. Now, in terms of market cap, they're sitting north of $4 billion, so it's definitely a fair-sized company. There's not a lot of risk of them going out of business. It's not a startup. It's not a penny stock. So again, different than what we generally talk about on this channel. And if we scroll down and we actually look at their earnings history over the last few quarters, you're going to get really excited. And those tremendous earnings are actually what's driving this PE ratio of 3.96. So for a company like this that's undergoing extreme growth in their sector, a price to earnings ratio under 4 is unheard of. And that's the number that really has me so interested in this company moving forward. So I'll scroll down here. I'll show you their earnings history over the last couple of quarters. So you'll notice the last 4 consecutive quarters were all beats, and they came in with earnings per share of just about $3.50 for this most recent quarter, Q1 of 2021. Now we're going to look at the numbers in a little bit more detail, but keep that number in mind. So just about $3.50 per share, and they're expecting to get up to almost $4.50 per share in Q2. So if you annualize that out and you say, okay, they're making about $4 a quarter, that's about $16 a year in earnings, and they're currently trading at $33 overall. So you're getting this company for about 2 times earnings if you look at their average earnings of Q1 and Q2 estimate for this year, which is absolutely unheard of. And if the trends in this industry continue and lumber prices continue to go up, I see their earnings per share continuing to move in that upward direction, which makes this company that much more of a steal of a deal at these current prices. So to kick things off, I wanted to take a deep dive into that Q1 profit that we just saw. So $430 million of Q1 profit with a market cap of $4 billion. So absolutely insane ratios for this company. Now this came out on April 29th, so very recent here. And you can see that just a year ago, this company actually posted a loss. So that's one thing I want to caution you guys is this is a very volatile industry. And because they're so dependent on lumber prices, their revenue and their earnings can fluctuate dramatically. However, in my opinion, I'm very bullish on the lumber industry for the next few years. We're going to talk about exactly why that is. So I think this is a good risk to take, and I don't see lumber prices coming down in any meaningful way in the foreseeable future. So they then break their earnings down on a per share basis, and you can see in the same quarter last year, it was actually a 56-cent per share loss. So tremendous turnaround for this company, and that's exactly why I think a lot of people have been turned off with this name, and they're really not thinking about Canfor seriously at this point in time. Sales or revenue was just shy of $2 billion. So again, they're generating almost half of their market cap in quarterly sales, which is unheard of for some of the companies that we've been talking about recently on this channel. And then you can see a quote from the chief executive himself, Don Kanye. Following the significant volatility experienced last year as a result of the pandemic, we're very pleased to see the sustained strength in global lumber markets continuing into 2021, as well as welcoming improvement in the pulp market conditions. Now, this company also has a pulp division. They trade separately. However, we're not really going to talk about that in this video, but I do encourage you to take a look if you're seriously interested in Canfor and their total overall business operations. Now, the key in this statement is the result of the pandemic. Now, a lot of companies and industries really didn't know how to gauge or measure the pandemic as it started to unfold. Now, this company, along with a lot of the other operators or competitors in the lumber space, expected a significant and prolonged slowdown in building. And what we've actually seen in the pandemic here is a lot of people are starting to do renovations, they're starting to upgrade their homes, they're starting to move to bigger properties or homes as they spend more time there. So they've really seen a shift that was kind of unexpected. And as a result, you're actually seeing an increased demand for lumber or finished wood products. And we're going to talk about this macro supply and demand situation in a little bit more detail as we move through the presentation. But the key to remember here is these companies expected a slowdown. They scaled back their operations and in some cases actually closed down plants. So supply was actually constricted and they've seen demand go up exponentially. So less supply, more demand, obviously prices are going to go up. And these companies like Canfor and some of their competitors, which I'm going to show you towards the end of the video, are benefiting in a massive way from that supply-demand imbalance. So this article really lays out the situation quite nicely. The title of the article is Lumber Mania is Sweeping North America, and it talks about the lumber frenzy that they say has overtaken the home building industry, Home Depot and resellers of lumber, and the internet. And we're now starting to see a lot of people making jokes, posts, whatever the case is, about this craziness they're seeing with lumber prices. And I'll show you a few of those as we scroll through the article. So here's a quick example of some of these posts that we're starting to see. So this one talks about no police escort for a shipment of lumber moving through Alberta here. As you scroll down, you can see that they start talking about the actual pricing of lumber. So lumber is measured in board feet, and traditionally 1,000 board feet of lumber went for anywhere between $200 and $400. Now they're starting to see this go from anywhere between $1,000 to $1,400 per 1,000 board feet. So if you can imagine, a typical single family home requires about 16,000 board feet of lumber to build, which traditionally would have cost about $10,000. So we're now seeing that same amount of lumber go for upwards of $40,000. So you can imagine, as people continue to build these homes, they're paying such a premium for this lumber, and there's so much demand that the prices just continue to go up and up and up. And we're going to look at new home builds in a second here, but this is definitely a trend I see continuing. Not to mention, now that we're moving into summer, people are also starting to think about new fences, new decks, stuff like that, which is further going to impact the supply overall. Now, the next section here is really interesting and worth mentioning as well. So, most people in this sector expected that the pandemic would induce an industry wide slowdown, not an industry wide boom. So, this is a CEO of one of the competitors, Deacon Lumber, and he says, not only has it surprised me, it's just surprised the whole industry how quickly we came roaring back. Housing and construction, repair and remodel, that's where so much money was pointed by the American consumers that the sheer scale of demand was hard to fathom. So people really missed the mark on this, and a lot of the producers expected a slowdown, which we talked about, which was exact opposite of what we actually saw in the real world here. And that's what's created this great situation for investors like myself or others that are looking to get into the lumber industry. Now, there's a few main industries that really drive the majority of lumber consumption, and the top one is definitely housing. So I wanted to show you guys this chart. This is actually the number of new housing starts over the past 20 years. So you can see prior to the big subprime mortgage crisis there in 2008, housing starts were at an all-time high at over 2 million homes per month, and we're now starting to see the number creep up close to that level. So you can see here new houses are being built at levels the US hasn't seen since the Great Recession. So home builds are definitely on the rise, not to mention all of the renovations, rebuilds, construction going on outside of the actual framing of the house itself. So that's definitely a huge catalyst for this industry and driving demand sky high. And on the supply side here, you can see that in the US and Canada, many sawmills actually closed shop altogether in 2019 and 2020 due to uncertain circumstances and the pandemic. Now, adding further pressure to the supply side is actually trying to get these sawmills back up and running. So number one, with all the restrictions because of the pandemic right now, it's definitely more difficult to find staff. And secondly, which they call out, some people are actually just benefiting from all the government assistance right now, and they actually don't want to go back to work because they're able to get these subsidies at home, and they don't want to be involved in this industry anymore. So they've shut down a lot of the sawmills. They didn't expect this much demand, and now they're struggling to get them back up, operational and staffed to meet this surging demand from areas like the housing industry, which we're seeing absolutely booming right now. So the article then goes on to talk about how they do not feel like this lumber frenzy is going to end anytime soon, and these lumber prices continue to hit new highs. So they're now seeing upwards of $1,400 per thousand board feet. If you scroll down here a little bit further, you can actually see some people are now starting to outbid each other because there is such a shortage on this stuff. So offering up to $1,500 per thousand board feet, and they're actually trying to buy the lumber before it's actually produced from the mill. So there's intense competition for this wood, and people are continuing to bid the price up further and further. And that really feeds into this meme culture. So if you scroll through the article, you can see people joking about taking their inheritance to the dump, talking about becoming pallet millionaires, so on and so forth. So it really has become almost comical, and the internet is starting to grab onto this stuff, which again, I think is really going to be beneficial for investors in these type of companies. Now, in addition to what we'll call the organic housing market, there's also a number of other tailwinds for the lumber industry overall. So our good friend Joe Biden here, he's actually put forward a historic infrastructure proposal in the United States, one that we've never seen these kind of numbers before ever in history. And there's two main components of this infrastructure proposal that are really going to drive lumber demand even further. So the first is obviously housing. Now this is over and above traditional or organic housing starts. So Biden's plans investing $213 billion towards building new homes, renovating existing homes, and retrofitting. So part of this plan is actually building and rehabilitating over 500,000 homes for low and middle income home buyers in the United States. So as you can imagine, the vast majority of this $213 billion is going to go towards labor and materials. Now, what's the number one material in homes? You can see it right here in the picture, but it's wood. It's lumber-related products, and that's going to continue to drive this industry upward. Now, the second piece and the bigger piece of this infrastructure plan is actually related to transportation, and Biden has pledged $621 billion, so absolutely mind-blowing figures here, towards rehabilitating and rebuilding the transportation network in the United States. This includes bridges, railways, other infrastructure that's really been neglected over the decades and years in the US. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's great, but roads aren't made out of wood, and how does that impact the lumber supply? And while you would be correct that concrete, steel, cement, there are other materials involved in the infrastructure plan itself, all of this stuff requires wood to get built. And you can actually see in the photo here the stacks of lumber on the side. So all the forms that are required to pour concrete, all of the guardrails, the safety rails, all that kind of stuff is built with wood. So although the main material in this situation may not be lumber exclusively, it's definitely required in a big way to make a lot of these projects happen. And that's also going to put tremendous stress on the lumber supply in the United States. And I actually have a friend that's involved in the concrete construction business, and he's working in another province right now. It was actually cheaper for him to fly back, load up all of his plywood onto a semi truck, and have it shipped out to another province than to actually purchase that stuff new from the store. I also have a neighbor who's redoing their house right now, saying that he was buying plywood last year for $20 a sheet, and he's now paying anywhere from $70 to $100 per sheet for this stuff. So it's absolutely crazy. It's not just specialty wood or finishing products, it's literally everything in the wood or lumber industry right now. So hopefully that's painted you guys a very clear picture of why I'm so bullish on the lumber industry on a macro scale. Now, in terms of Canfor itself, I believe this is one of the best operators in this space. So now I'm going to take you through their actual business model specific to Canfor. So at a glance, Canfor is one of the world's largest producers of sustainable lumber, pulp, and paper. So again, we're not necessarily focused on the pulp and paper here, but they do have those operations as well. We've built a reputation on our quality of products, the reliability of our supply, and our superior customer service. Now, if you scroll down, you can see they talk about their different products here. So this is lumber. Now, one thing I learned during this presentation is there's timber and there's lumber. Timber refers to the actual trees in the forest and the forest resource itself. I myself thought that that was actually the bottleneck here, but in reality, there's lots of trees out there that can be chopped down. It's actually lumber or the finished product boards that are the bottleneck. So they can't actually produce this stuff fast enough at the mills that they have currently in operation. So that's one thing to be aware of. Now, on a longer term scale, I can see constraints in the timber side of things as well as we continue to deforest across North America, and obviously trees take a long time to grow. But as of right now, the bottleneck or the supply constraint is actually in relation to the finished lumber goods. So as you scroll down here, you can see the different types of wood that they offer, some of the different products. We're not going to go into this in much detail, but the key here is that all of these are in short supply and high demand. Now, this is a picture of one of their actual sawmills. So you can see these are major operations. They're definitely not easy to set up, and they take a lot of specialized people to operate. So it's not like you can just set one of these things up overnight and hire these people off the street. They need to know what they're doing. These are very dangerous jobs, and they need to have a high level of expertise and understanding of the safety equipment and operations before you can let people work at these facilities. They then go on to talk about the forest management. So obviously that's extremely important to these companies. If they don't manage the timber resource effectively, they're ultimately going to work themselves out of a job, very similar to concerns around overfishing. And if we continue to scroll down, you can see they then start to talk about the transportation. So a big component of this industry is actually supply chain management. You can see Canfor moves their products across North America by rail, truck, and ship, which actually allows them to serve markets offshore as well. They've got ports in Vancouver and Prince Rupert, and that allows them to export these products to Asian markets overseas. Now, south of the border, you can see they have a trucking division, New South Express, which is located in Myrtle Beach, and that allows distribution in the southeast of the United States. And they also have operations in Alabama, which opens up export opportunities to the Caribbean as well. So this company is very well diversified geographically across North America, and that enables them to really serve these markets overseas and internationally in a meaningful way. So as of right now, they actually have 8 sawmills spread across Canada, most of which are in BC. So Fort St. John, Mackenzie, Prince George, Plateau, Chetwynd, Vavenby, Radium, and Elko. So they've actually upgraded a lot of these to really optimize their wood utilization. And these are the sawmills that produce the finished lumber that's then distributed across North America and internationally. Now this slide actually looks at their operations overall, so not just their sawmills, but all of their different manufacturing facilities. So you can see some of them create joists, some of them create laminated products, lumber products, pellets, pulp and paper. So there is really some variety, and each one of these operations really focuses or specializes on one type of product or product category. But if you scroll down, you can see they've really got an impressive lineup of different operations here, and they're spread all over Canada and the United States. So Prince George, Jackson, Mackenzie, Myrtle Beach, Vanderhoof, all over the place. And this really allows them to pump out a lot of these products and get them to market in a consistent and reliable fashion. And that's what really separates this company from some of the competitors. Now, speaking of competitors, there's definitely a number of them in this lumber industry. So some of the most notable, or the top 3 competitors, are West Fraser, Mercer, and Tolko Industries. Now these companies range dramatically. You can see the number of employees ranges from 8,200 to 2,300, along with their market cap and revenue. So if you are bullish on this industry, I would definitely recommend you take a look at some of these other alternatives. But for me, based on what I've learned about these companies, Canfor does offer the best risk reward, as well as that diversification and brand reliability. So to close things out here, you guys, I wanted to talk about my price prediction for this company. Now, I definitely don't think Canfor is going to be a 10x type of stock. It's not a penny stock. It's not in the tech sector. This is more of a slow and steady kind of growth stock that I feel very safe putting my money here. So I can definitely see this company continuing to see impressive earnings per share over the next couple of years, because I think a lot of these macro trends aren't going anywhere. I feel like new home starts are going to continue to grow. People have a lot of money saved away from the pandemic, and they want to invest that in their primary residence, whether that's through renovation or upgrading their home altogether to a new build. And in terms of the infrastructure plan, these are multi-year projects. So just because the money has been committed doesn't mean these projects are going to go away overnight. They're going to require lumber for the next 5, 10, 15 years to complete a lot of these projects. And if you layer in the longer term timber constraints that I believe we're going to see in North America, I really am bullish on this sector in a big way over the long term here. So on Simply Wall Street, which you guys have seen me talk about a lot, they give very thorough analysis of these companies. They have a fair market value on Canfor of about $40 Canadian, $39.86. Now, if you compare that to their current share price of about $33, it's about a 20% upside from here. Now, I personally believe earnings per share are going to continue to beat for this company. So I think we could definitely see the $50, $55, $60 range within the next 12 months. And if that's the case, you're looking anywhere from 60, 80, 100% return on this investment. Now, I personally don't see a lot of downside risk for this name unless the lumber industry completely collapses, a ton of new mills come online, and this stuff becomes much cheaper on a per board foot basis. But I just don't see that happening because of some of the reasons we've talked about in this video. So overall, you guys, I definitely think this company is worth a look. This is not a stock you're going to hear about on a lot of other YouTube channels or the forum boards, to be honest. I do think the internet's going to catch hold of this, and as people continue to joke about this situation, it will draw interest from investors. So I think that's another catalyst. If retail investors and Wall Street starts to pick up on this trend, for me, I'm definitely looking to open a position in Canfor in the next couple of days here, which is why I wanted to get this video out. As always, I'll keep you guys posted if and when I do pull the trigger and give you details of the trade. Now, if you haven't already, please take a second to smash that like button. It really does help the channel out, especially with some of these companies that aren't necessarily searched. It really helps get this content to a lot of other people who might find value. If you're not already subscribed to the channel McNallie Money, take a second to do so, and let me know in the comment section what you think of Canfor, this analysis, and the lumber industry overall moving forward. On a final note, you guys, have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching.